Mental Health Matters on this Thursday morning. Johanse Ayodike joins me, and today's talking point, Trini terms, we know it, pressure does bust pipe. And we know the saying, we understand the concept, but I guess I look forward to your interpretation of this pressure does bust pipe argument. Of course, Johanse, our behavioral change consultant joins us live. Johanse.
Good morning, Jason, and good morning to everybody viewing and listening.
Good morning. Well, yeah, pressure's bust pipe. You know, I look at that from the angle of, yeah, literally, you know, if there's too much pressure on a line, the pipe will burst, and you have to now call the plumber to join up, and then when the water bursts, you know, it's a disaster.
All right, you're saying too much pressure, right? Let's cause it to burst. So then the pipe itself was weak?
I just think the pipe could not accommodate the kind of pressure that was, it had pressure and then it had pressure. And then the joinings too, you see, remember what the pipe itself could take the pressure, but sometimes that, the connection, the joining, the joints burst.
All right, so let me get into it. Sometimes it depends on the strength of the pipe. So it's also the strength of the individual. We should know how much we could take. I think everybody have the capacity to understand when you're under pressure, right? People know when they have less patience, they become impatient. People know when they're starting to lose sleep. People know when they're trying to go to sleep, and the pressure of the day, the things ruminate in their mind. People know when they no longer could handle, they normally go into the job and functioning, but they can't function no more. And even, they could see even, let's say the children, they know the children could normally handle a certain amount of workload, but they could see when that pipe under pressure.
But what do you say to the individual who can only perform under pressure? There are people who put pressure on themselves because it gives them a heightened sense of awareness where the performance is now optimum, it's on a level, and that has been the formula. So they put themselves to be last minute, to literally take it down to the wire. Johanse, you know people operate like that.
You're saying only perform under pressure, but sometimes it's how well you perform, one, and then the longevity of that. Because you can't put yourself under pressure for your entire career. You can't be last minute and survive for your entire school to career life. I understand that I used to be a last minute man, and I used to call it excitement, right? But
adrenaline.
But as life progressed, it's all that adrenaline, that's too much. Right, that's too much. You can't handle that after all. And even if you look at a physical pipe, if you just put the highest pressure, if you now buy a pump for your house, right, and the pump getting it too much, I think it was PSI, right, then the very pipes you had before that was working good, then it will burst eventually. So it's understanding what you're capable of.
So when we say pressure, especially, and I'm glad you mentioned, and I mentioned the whole last minute concept, we in the Caribbean, we notorious for that, Johanse. We know we have a flight 2 whole weeks in advance, but we're looking to pack the morning of. And sometimes within that pace, you reach the airport, you might probably forget a passport, you forget some important item, and you say, oh my goodness, how do we break out of that? Because there are people who literally do that systematically every single time. And I'm just using that example as a small example, but there are bigger examples, obviously.
Sometimes I think we want excitement in our life, right? And if we're not living a fulfilling life, meaning we're not living a life where we're doing the things we really want to do, we will look for the excitement somewhere else. And one of the biggest excitements is last minute. And I'm using the word excitement because sometimes the product of that is not really healthy, you know, because after rushing and taking the same flight, then when you reach on the flight, you're tired. You're weary. Sometimes when you reach a destination, you don't even have energy to even enjoy. You have to sleep a whole day. Not talking about jet lag, but just the whole, it's just too much on your nervous system itself. So in the short term, you think it's excitement, but in the long term, it's detrimental for you.
What advice you can give this morning to homemakers, and not necessarily just the mama alone, probably their dads who might take on the responsibility of the chores and handling the wares especially, but they're not living by themselves. Sometimes there are children there, they could be extended family members in the household. What do you say to that person this morning who feel a tremendous sense of pressure in the household because every responsibility falls upon their shoulder?
This actually now is for everybody, not only homemakers as you identify. One, create a system. If you create a system does run on automation most times, not emotion, right? But if it's an emotion, then there's a heightened sense of things and you can't always function. And if it's emotion, you can't really predict it. Also, be honest with yourself about what you could handle. Yes, you might want to take on 10 responsibilities, but the capacity of your pipe, you could only take on 5 responsibilities, 7 responsibilities. And it don't make sense trying to take on 10 and you could do 7 well, but then the 3 get neglected and then it causes another repercussion that add maybe 5 more responsibilities and now you have 12. And now you feel like you can't handle it and then you say, well, look how much thing I doing. Right? And you would say that, but not estimating and not understanding is you put yourself there.
But then again, when we even look at the workplace environment and dynamics, there are some folks who do not like to delegate. They rather take on the responsibility because they do not trust the personalities around them. They don't have faith in the system that's around them to get the job done. So I don't know if it was micromanage, what you call that really and truly? In terms of just having to take on all responsibility instead of delegating and saying, you handle that, Jason, you handle that. You want to take and keep your eyes on every aspect of the organization.
Well, it have different reasons for that. One, it could be that there's a personality flaw. You think you're better than everybody and you just need to do everything yourself. 1. 2, if you don't trust the team around you, it depends on how much control you have, then either get a new team. If you don't have that luxury, maybe you need to come out of the environment. Because sometimes we think we are heroes, I could come in and change everybody. I could come in and change this thing. And that's maybe a noble effort. But if you realize and this understanding the capacity of the pipe, because again, you could have a small pipe, but you want to handle a lot of pressure and a lot of water, but that is not the reality of it. So you need to remove yourself from the situation.
You think people who are able to perform under this kind of extreme circumstance, again, it's not healthy, and we agree that there is an alternative, but people who they are prolific in that regard, they're able to perform under extreme pressure, you think it gives them a certain thrill? It's a almost pat on the back to yourself to know that, hey, I was able to perform under the most extreme pressure?
Yeah, it could be a pat on the back, but thinking about it, as I mentioned before, maybe it's like a drug too, right? Because as I was saying before, I realized, and this is in my life personally also, and I've seen it with clients, is that when you start to live a fulfilled life, when you start to put yourself in spaces you really want to be, when you start to do things you really want to do, you don't really feel for that thrill anymore. And when you live in that fulfilled life, you're able to plan better and create systems so you don't have to put yourself under that pressure.
Because the reality is it doesn't only take a toll on your mental health, it also takes a toll on your physical health. And this is something I've seen firsthand because of my cultural background and being part of the entertainment landscape, especially around Carnival. I see people put themselves under extreme pressure, especially those who are involved in the mass. Last minute, we're talking about down to the wire. The day before, people hit the road, people still in the band room, still in the mass camp, bending and hot glue and as the truck roll off, Juve morning or Carnival Mondays, when everything actually comes together. And I've seen people literally nearly lose their mind, in that kind of scenario.
Correct. And I think it's because we as Trinidadians, we're too smart, We are talented people. And when you have talent, sometimes you don't understand the value of planning ahead or sometimes even hard work because I'm bright. So I could wait until 2 minutes before it happened. I could leave home with an hour when I know of traffic is an hour and a half and I skill enough to weave through traffic and take the back roads.
Yeah.
So I think it's a cultural thing in terms of our intelligence.
How does one rebuild your answer when the pipe busts, the pipe bursts, the pipe mash up, you take on too much, and you did not make the task, you didn't go over the line, abject failure, egg in your face. You're mentally shattered, right? You're emotional, you break down, you don't want to see nobody, you withdraw. How does one get themselves back to a place of normalcy?
First, and this might be the hardest part, acknowledge the pipe bust because of you, right? Yes, you.
That one hard, People tend to deflect.
Exactly. And here's the water. Here is the metaphor. It might the water do it. But did you buy the correct pipe? Did you hire the correct plumber? Did you have the right pump? Did you have the right amount of best joints? So first admit that you were complacent. So whether it is in terms of your job, in terms of your family, in terms of your relationship, understand where your fault is first. Then when you could acknowledge it's your fault, then now you can decide, what do I want to do differently? So I want now, when I was in this kind of relationship, I don't want to be with this type of person anymore. Right? I know I had this error with my child. It's not that necessarily something wrong with my child, but maybe the approach could be different. Right? I try to be a hero in my workplace, but I realize I can't carry my whole workplace if people don't want to do the work. I know I need to do something different. And you identify now slowly, because sometimes you want to dive right back into it one time. Right? You want to build everything one time. Nah. Take your time and rebuild and understand again what you really want.
Self-accountability, that is a struggle for many. Sometimes people tend to shift the blame, put it elsewhere. It's really hard to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize that you would have failed, Mm-hmm. It's a tough one, you answer.
Yeah, and that is part of the culture too. We always talking about what things should be and how people should be and why the sun's so hot and why this and why that, versus acknowledging this is what it is. And once I acknowledge what it is, then I in reality, so I could formulate the best strategy.
You have the final say. Pressure is bust pipe. It's all yours.
Don't put yourself under pressure by not being realistic. Understand exactly what's going on in this situation. Don't make life complicated, because even though life is not easy, it's really not that hard. Thank you for listening.
IODK touching base mental health matters. And listen, don't put yourself through that kind of pressure to
correct.
To mash up yourself ultimately, to really take yourself to a place that, yes, it's excitement, but you could seriously put a toll on your mental and physical well-being if you continue going down that particular road. Well done, Yohanse, as always. Great conversation. Let's come back with our World Weather Wrap and our birthday brew before we transition into the morning shot with Ian Wason. See you soon.